Good day, everybody. Before I start, let me introduce myself. I am Marquez Trisha from BS Criminology for Delta, and I belong to Group 5. So, today we're going to discuss about the restorative justice. So, let's start. So, here are my learning objectives. So, first, to know and understand what restorative justice is, learn the basic principles and values of restorative justice, examine different models of applications of restorative justice, and lastly, acquire skills and tools for applying restorative alternative models of justice aimed at repairing and healing the effects of crime. So, what is restorative justice? Do you have any idea about restorative justice? So, when we say restorative justice, it is a process through which remorseful offenders accept responsibility for their misconduct, particularly to their victims and to the community. So, to sum up, restorative justice emphasizes from the word itself restorative, restore or repairing the harm caused or revealed by criminal behavior. So, it views criminal acts more comprehensively rather than defining crime as simply law-breaking. It recognizes that offenders harm victims, communities, and even themselves. So, it involves more parties responding to crime rather than giving key roles only to government and the offender. It also includes victims and communities as well. And restorative justice, it measures success differently rather than measuring how much punishment is inflicted. So it measures how much harm is repaired or prevented. So restorative justice, not giving the offender a punishment, but give them accountability to the offense that they committed. So let's continue. So it creates obligations to make things right through proactive involvement of victims, ownership of the offender of the crime, and the community in search for solutions which promote repair, reconciliation, and reassurance. So yun nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, ang restorative justice is giving the chance to make the victim heal and also make the offender reflect on what he do to the victim. So thus the restorative justice process is actively participated in by the victim, the offender, and or any individual or community member affected by the crime. So to resolve conflicts resulting from the criminal offense, often with the help of a fair and impartial third party. So, examples of restorative process include mediation. We will going to discuss this through the discussion, conferencing, sentencing or support circle, and the like. And thus, restorative outcome is an agreement obtained as a product of restorative justice process. So, examples of restorative outcomes include restitution, community work service, and any other program or response designed to accomplish reparation of the victim and the reintegration of the victims and or offenders. So how was restorative justice adopted in the Philippines? So according to Parole and Probation Administration, the Philippines is member country of the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. So thus it adopted the resolution as the basic principles on the use of restorative justice program in criminal matters. So the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, on which the Philippines is a member country, yun kakasabi ko, through a draft resolution. So, recommended to the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations Organization or the UNO, the adoption of the basic principles of the use of restorative justice programs in criminal matters. So, the said document is formulation, mediation, and restorative justice, the Philippines being Signatory member countries should ensure adoption of this resolution. So, ang goal daw ng government is to establish a more enlightened and humane correctional system that will promote the reformation to reform the offenders and thereby reduce the incidence of recidivism, yung maulit-ulit yung crime na nangyari. So, this is in line with applicable laws, rules, and policies mandating this agency to administer the parole and probation system in the country. So as such, the PPA is empowered to create innovative policies, programs, and activities to facilitate the reintegration of its clientele into the mainstream of society and consequently prevent the commission of crime. Therefore, PPA adopts restorative justice as one of its rehabilitation programs, which utilizes restorative processes and aim to achieve restorative outcomes. So, what are the effects of restorative justice as a rehabilitation program of parole and probation administration? So, reintegration of the offenders to the social mainstream and encouraging them to assume active responsibility for the injuries inflicted to the victims. So, proactive involvement of the community to support and assist in the rehabilitation of victims and offenders. And attention to the needs, of course, giving attention to the needs of the victims, survivors, and other persons affected by the offenses, and as participating stakeholders in the criminal justice system, rather than mere objects or passive recipients of services of intervention that may be unwanted, inappropriate, or ineffective. So, healing the effects of the crime or wrongdoing suffered by the respective stakeholders. So, it will serve as the victim's healing process. So, prevention of further commission of crime and delinquency. So, to prevent the crime to be committed again. So, what are the restorative justice models that can be applied in parole and probation administration? So, peacemaking encounter. So, a community-based gathering that brings the victimized community, and the offender together. So, it's like an open forum, parang the community, the victim, and also the offender will meet together face to face. It supports the healing process of victims. So by providing a safe and controlled setting for them to meet and speak with the offender on confidential and strictly voluntary basis. So here, parang victims and the offender will meet face to face, of course, with the guidance of the mediator. Of course, in confidential and secure place. It also allows the offender to learn about the impact of the crime to the victim and his or her family, and to take direct responsibility for his or her behavior. So likewise, it provides a chance for the victim and the offender to forge a mutually acceptable plan that addresses the harm caused by the crime. So, para magkakaroon sila ng reconciliation through that peacemaking encounter, at least magkakaroon ng healing process yung victim, and also makaka-reflect yung offender sa kanyang nagawang offenses. So, as a community-based decision model, the agency peacemaking encounter is being implemented through the following process. So, here are the following process. So, first is the victim-offender mediation. Ito na yon. So, victim-offender mediation, a process that provides an interested victim an opportunity to meet face-to-face. That's what I said a while back. His or her offender. So, they will meet face-to-face and in a secured and structured setting and atmosphere with the help of trained mediator, and engage in a discussion of the past offense and its impact to his or her life. So, this victim-offender mediation, often referred as VOM, victim offender mediation. So second, Ang goal ng victim offender mediation is to support healing process ng ating victim and allow the offender to learn lesson to the things that he done to the victim. Maybe it's physical, emotional, and financial existence, and take direct responsibility for his or her behavior for mutually developing a restorative justice plan that addresses the harm caused by the said offense. So next is conferencing. So conferencing is a process which involves community of people most affected by the crime. So the victim and the offender and their families, the affected community members, and trained facilitators and community strength in a restorative discussion of issues and problems arising from an offensive or coincidence. So here in conferencing, it is a voluntary, structured meeting between the offenders, victims, and also both parties, family and friends, and in which they address consequences as restitution and other outcomes. So, of course, it will going to facilitated by the trained facilitator. So the above parties are gathered at their own volition to discuss how they and others have been harmed by the offense or conflict, and how that harm may be repaired and broken relationship may be restored. It's like restoration. Through this conferencing, they will going to restore all lahat ng na-inflict ng ating offender. Next is circle of support. So a community direct process organized by the field office and participated in by the clients, the voluntary probation aides or VPAs, and selected members of the community in the discussion of the offense and its impact. So this circle of support, so this model of restorative justice, it provides an opportunity for the victims, offenders, and also the community to discuss or open up the crime, discuss about the crime and its aftermath. So particularly its effect on the relationship in the community. So lastly is the indigenous practice. So its goal is to preserve. So ang goal ng indigenous practice is to preserve and protect and respect yung tribal clients natin. So parole probation adapts and adheres to prescribed mechanisms customary to their beliefs, but ensuring and guaranteeing the due exercises of the concerned tribal community to reject or allow the intervention, documentation, and publication of the DOJ PPA of the indigenous conciliation practice undertaken. So we have the 4, right? So that's all. Thank you. I hope you learned something.